If you are in your 40s or nearing 40 and you know you want to have a child and you are with a man who commits to having a child with you only to renege at the 11th hour when you are ready, this episode of Make Him Wonder is for you. I take an important episode of Esther Perel, a famed psychologist who takes a counseling approach with this woman in her 40s with her life partner. She has frozen 4 embryos with him. He's committed to that. That's a key for you to know that this woman can go the distance if she gets the right coaching to help guide him to what he truly desires. You can have this if you are in a similar situation, and regardless, you are going to learn a lot about men, how they think anthropologically, biologically, and when you are ready to have a child, you can too. So without further delay, let's get right to this interesting and important episode of Make Him Wonder.
I feel like you've gotten me unstuck. I really needed that framework for going forward, and I feel like you gave that to me.
Whatever I've been doing hasn't been working. Might as well try a different strategy. Thanks to you, Paula. I'm glad I found you.
Thank you so much, Paula. I really do truly appreciate you. This was awesome.
Sick of sacrificing or settling in your romantic life? Welcome to Make Him Wonder with Coach Paula Grooms, where women struggling in real relationships ask the expert. Unscripted, unfiltered, understandable coaching conversations to help passionate women succeed in love.
Hi there, and welcome to Make Him Wonder. I'm your host, Coach Paula, a dating and relationship coach for women, licensed social worker, and author of the book, Why Won't He Commit? How a Man Decides to Make You the One. I help you find a Mr. Right, get an ex back, or grow an existing relationship with a man you truly desire, so you create the relationship of your dreams and level up to the complete commitment you totally deserve. Psychotherapist, relationship expert, and author Esther Perel is heralded as one of today's most insightful voices on modern relationships across the world, especially as she is fluent in 9 languages. Her celebrated TED Talks and best-selling books, Mating in Captivity and The State of Affairs, are globally recognized. Therefore, she is a sought-after relationship expert on media all over the world. She hosts her own podcast, much like this one, where she has guests talk to her about their relational or emotional issues and challenges. The podcast is called Where Should We Begin? And I came across a particular episode that I want to share with you, as it speaks to an issue many of you are facing and highlights the significant difference between a therapeutic approach to issues with men and the coaching approach that I take. In this particular episode, a 40-year-old woman who still loves a man she calls her life partner of 6 years. I'm not sure if they are married or not, so it's unclear. However, she states that they bought a house together, and she is devastated that, quote, after building their life together, which included the freezing of embryos, and generally agreeing on a timeline for getting pregnant, her partner began wavering on the agreement when it finally came time to go forward with a pregnancy. This caller outlines the story and her current state of feeling alone, angry, scared, and betrayed. She is Esther's guest to ask how she can remain hopeful when she's in such a state, and I believe she gets that answer. But I think it will be useful to you as a Make Him Wonder listener to hear the tangible approach I would be giving this caller if she wants to have the family she desires with this man she still calls the love of her life. So to give you a background before I play part of this episode and give my editorial comments, this 40-year-old woman starts by telling Esther that she just separated from her life partner of 6 years. They had frozen embryos together 4 years ago, and the agreement was that she would get pregnant in her 40th year. She states that 5 months of circular talking in couples therapy did nothing to move the needle for this man, and he would not discuss it. So here is where she begins with Esther.
Yeah, I'll give you sort of a brief overview. I originally called in October after a very intense couples therapy session with my partner of 6 years, where I proposed that maybe we would separate and I would have a baby on my own and he would have some involvement that we discuss. We froze some embryos together 4 years ago. And it was sort of unspoken, but very spoken, that I could wait till I'm 40. And then we sort of have to begin to talk. And I did the embryos when I was 36, and we had a lot of healthy embryos. I was very grateful. So that's October. We've not had a direct conversation since that couples therapy session. That weekend, a couple days later, I asked him to leave the house because he wasn't able to directly address the issue of literally saying like a declarative sentence about whether we could use these embryos, whether separation, anything. He had an inability to discuss it. And we had been in a high conflict couple therapy for 4 to 5 months. And in those couples therapy sessions, a lot of rage started to come out on both sides, I'll say, but nonstop.
So right there, I want to give you my take on why the couples therapy for 5 months will not be helpful, because it is just going over feelings and not moving the needle. Now you may say, well, what would be her alternative? I'm going to give you what I believe her alternative was, and actually is even now, but it flies in the face of the modern narrative about how we deal with issues with a man. One caveat here I will make is that she again calls him her life partner, but I would assume that he has made more than once, twice, 3, 4, many more times over 6 years of committing to a home with this woman, committing to frozen embryos with this woman. I want you to think about that. That is a formal public commitment. They may not have walked down the aisle and made a contract with the state that they live in, if they are in America or the country that they are living in, etc. But in my book, there is certainly a formal commitment. This man made a decision. And what is happening here that I am hearing is that this woman, when she turned 40, she wanted to get her partner's absolute agreement and him being on board with her going forward. I'm going to play more of this, but I want you to think about what I just said and think, what, if anything, were her alternatives? Because I'm going to give you an alternative. We might even think of it as 2 alternatives to taking him to therapy, which, you know, if you listen to me here, is tantamount to not only showing the man that A, something is wrong, very wrong, with our relationship, with our ability to handle what we need to handle between us. This leaves a man feeling completely off balance about a relationship. He does not feel safe, and he certainly knows that his woman is not happy. Okay, let's listen further.
The rage, the resentment, the conflict was focused on what? Just so I have some sense.
It's really hard to say. I would say it was focused on me, and it would happen within couples therapy sessions. I think it was, I want to be with this person. I don't want to have a family with this person right now. If I don't have a family with this person right now, I might lose this person. I think something along those lines.
Said who?
Said him. I think we'd have to ask him. I think the idea is, I have no idea where the rage comes from. But since October, I've realized that I don't think we can use those embryos. I don't think that having a baby with this person is the right decision.
So I would be doing much like Esther is doing now, and getting all the information and putting it down in my mind's database that he did not feel safe in one way, shape, or form to move forward. In terms of what he was saying, the rage at her, using her words, was coming out. But because a decision to move forward with having a baby is not the same for a man as it is for a woman who has a timeline, I believe would have been better for her to handle it a different way than the therapy. We're going to get to that. And even what she could do now. But let's continue more with her story, because I think she's quite well spoken. And again, I want you to also see the difference between a therapeutic approach, supportive listening, and active coaching that we would do around a man's resistance to commitment, moving forward with a child, etc.
With the help of a therapist and some time away, I think it's probably not the healthiest situation. We are very dysregulated when we are together now, and we cannot seem to move forward. So within the last 3 months, I've sort of decided I've moved out. It's been 2 weeks and I'm 40 and I went to the fertility clinic on Friday and I'm terrified. I'm living in so much fear and I'm a pretty faithful, hopeful person, and I have lost all of my hope. I've lost all of my vision. I've lost a lot, I feel.
What happened at the clinic that...
I've already done this once. I put my body through a lot, and the reserve is low. The reserve is low. The time is now. There's no money. There's no stability within and without for me to be making these decisions. But ultimately, I feel I've been making sort of these decisions for my future family rather than necessarily only my present self. And it's been extremely hard to navigate my sense of regret, my sense of loss of time, and ultimately like a huge loss of respect from my partner for not acknowledging my timeline and sort of my value. And I haven't even been able to focus on the loss of the relationship, which has been horrific and blown up, because I'm dealing with the magnitude of something that I feel is much greater, like motherhood and fertility. And it's really difficult, and I'm doing it alone.
Can I ask you just a couple of more factual questions? Do you only have frozen embryos, or do you also have frozen eggs?
I only have frozen embryos. It's a huge, huge regret, and I'm not someone who lives in regret, so that feeling is very, very confusing.
And they're telling you that your fertility at this point is in total decline, and they are encouraging you to freeze something, but you don't have the means to do so, nor the headspace at this moment either. And
Exactly.
He does not want children now, children with you, or is he okay being a donor, a known donor?
This is a great question and quite important. However, when I give you what I would have been telling this gal if she had come to me with the issue at hand prior
It's a reactive
to
ending. You're just in the middle of a fight, and one of you said, "Fuck you, I'm out of here,"
much of this
or "Get out of here,"
could
or
have been
was this
thwarted.
we are really
I
at a
think
crossroads?
we are not able to have those conversations in a healthy way that keeps us both safe, let's say. I can only answer with speculation, but I think he's definitely not ready now. And he's left it open-ended, which is excruciating.
You see, if you think about the human animal that we are and understand that for many millennia there was no planning for children, truly until very, very recent in our history, meaning a nanosecond ago in our history as humans on this planet, men did not necessarily plan for children. And when I say necessarily, they knew that children would come from sex, but understanding men biologically, anthropologically, sociologically, we can get this in a much better sense and with a better understanding of why this man is reacting in the way that he is. And what I just said might be giving you a clue as to where I'm going to go with this in terms of the coaching. But I think it's going to be helpful for you to listen more. So here is how Esther, with her therapeutic approach, is supporting this woman in her feelings.
Are we able to grieve? Are we able to acknowledge loss, letdown, or are we just barking?
That's a great question. I think we're barking, but basically I was being ignored. I was being direct and communicative and everything and courageous and brave and coming up with a lot of solutions, and I was being literally not reacted to. And it's sort of like, oh, maybe we'll do it next year, or it's sort of a little bit of a control thing to not say yes and not say no. And
so you're hearing there that this man is being very male about pulling the trigger on moving forward with this. Very normal. But because we have moved into the way we relate now beyond our biology, it's more than a man can deal with intellectually, emotionally. And if you go back to the fundamentals that we talk about here all the time, women relate via verbalization, men relate via action. You can get it on a very foundational level. You see, he's not saying no. And this man went forward with all that it entailed to freeze 4 embryos. Think about that. This is not a man who did not want and who still does not want children with this woman. He does. But to put him in a position of being decisive about this in a way that is not anthropological, is not biological, is not the male way to handle things such as this kind of commitment, because he can't feel things in a forward way like this woman can. We have a very, very different way of not only seeing the world, intellectualizing the world, but feeling the world. Men have no biological clock that is ticking like women do. Now, you can say, well, some men do. And yes, there are a few, but if we take something that is only inherent in the few and trying to extrapolate it and correlate it to the many with men, we can really mess ourselves up. Let's hear a little bit more, and then I'm going to give you straight up what would have been a better thing to do in this case and what this woman can still do, potentially.
Initially, I compromised. I said, will you sign off? I'll do it in a year. We'll wait a year, and then in my 41st year, we'll figure it out. We can figure it out. I've made so many, and nothing comes back. But I think it is the rage, the incompatibility, the deep sort of a betrayal that I feel, that I don't think it's healthy to use these embryos that we have, which I didn't think. I was so connected to using them for so long. We can make it work this bad, but
that very thinking we can make it work is what kept you for 6 years. And what else? What was the quality of the relationship that made you believe this is gonna resolve itself? It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when.
And if I tell you, I believed so much. I held the vision of our life. We bought a house, we froze embryos, we had a high quality of life, a deep connection, and I didn't think that he wouldn't come through. And again, he's not being clear. He probably will come through, but it's that I'm being forced to make these decisions.
Did you hear that? He probably will come through, but I've been forced to make these decisions. Ding, ding, ding. Now we're going to go back to what I just said about heretofore, just a nanosecond ago in our history as humans on the planet. Men had sex because, make no mistake, we only have a few drives as human beings. Those drives are to breathe and survive, get food, which is part of the survival, and have sex. Those are the drives. There is no drive to have children. That is an outgrowth. And yes, it's a want of many people, a want, a desire, but it is not a drive. The drive is to have sex. And heretofore, the drive created children, and there was no control over the when. None. And until as recently as 1961, think of that in terms of our history as humans. It's less than a blip on the screen. There was no control over it in any way. Yes, there was some ability, the rhythm method, etc., but it wasn't a real safeguard. The drive to have sex is built in us so that children come from that. What I'm getting to here is that if this woman related to this man that has shown this kind of commitment to having children with her, I bet you can guess what I would have said for her to do via action. Remember, I alluded to 2 choices. The first is simply, it is my 40th birthday. I'm going to go forward, honey, and see what happens. I want your blessing on that. Now he starts to hem and haw because it's not, quote unquote, normal for this kind of immediate planning, so to speak. And again, in some men it is, but we're dealing with this woman's man, and it's not altogether an abnormal thing at all. I don't know if he's 40, she doesn't say, but depending on the man can be ready at 26. He cannot be ready at 36 or even 46. So because of his commitment and the having froze the embryos, it would simply be this. I'm going to go forward with this. I would like your blessing, but if you can't, here's the other alternative. I'm going to do this. And I trust you will either sign off on this, if that's what it takes, and we co-parent. And the reason I say this, because it's not the best alternative if that occurred, meaning he decided he wants out. I dare say, I can't imagine that once the child is here, he would be doing that. The love is here with this couple. He went through 5 months of this excruciating therapy for him. When the man does not agree, whether it's for full commitment or for this, we just take decisive action in the loving way. I trust you understand that I am going to be using these embryos, and that you, even if we can't go forward, in paying deference to our 6 years together, our love, etc., you will allow me to do that. And then she takes the action. Now, several different scenarios could play out from here, meaning he could just say, I can't, and leave, but he would be doing the leaving. She takes the decisive action. He will be back when there hasn't been all this rage that she's talking about, because the man cannot be talking about it. He's not equipped for that. And when we pay deference to it and act accordingly, we can get everything not only that we desire, but that the man and the children that come from that man benefit from. Let's hear more of this, because I think, again, it's very useful for you to understand the coaching approach and juxtapose it against the therapeutic approach. It's what is right for each woman. You are here because you want the best possibility of getting to the end result that, again, is right for you as a woman, good for a man, and fantastic for children that come from the union of woman and man.
I think he was in control of the relationship the whole time. And ultimately, I was going along with everything.
I'm going to ask you to tell me more, and then I'm going to ask you, what can we focus on today? And what feels most urgent and important?
I think my question is really one of faith. Really. And I see that so much in your work. You keep such a sense of magic. Turn the corner. You never know. And I really, really hold that and integrate that into my life fully. And I have no hope.
That's very sad to me, because there is so much hope here. And Esther gives her that hope, and I'm glad for that. But the specifics here can be worked on, and she can have this together with this man.
I think my question is really one of faith. Really. And I see that so much in your work. You keep such a sense of magic. Turn the corner. You never know. And I really, really hold that and integrate that into my life fully. And I have no hope at a time when I need it most.
And I have no hope that I will have a family, I will have a child, I will have a partner, I will have him, we will reunite. Which part?
No.
Everything?
That I will have a family. That I will have a family that feels right for me and that feels comfortable. I think ultimately, I don't know a lot, but I felt that having a baby at 40 with the love of my life shouldn't feel like going to war. And I began to sort of change and begin to protect myself and my idea of what a home and love should be. And ultimately that there's a way forward for what I want, and that it's okay to have made the decisions I made at the time. And I think my question to you is, how do I grieve this? How do I work through what is so deep and so masked by so much anger, right? I'm getting emails about rent and separation and things like this, and I'm thinking to myself, this doesn't even come close to the magnitude of the things that I am focusing on.
Give me a bit of a sense of your whereabouts. You moved out, he moved out. Tell me.
We owned a home together, and I think that moving into the home that we bought together was sort of the beginning of the end. That was about 2 years ago. It was a family home, and he wouldn't move in. It was sitting there for a year and a half, just looking at it. And, 10 minutes from where we lived. It just never felt like a home.
So, on this episode, which is entitled, I Waited for You to Be Ready, but Now I'm 40 and Childless, Where Should We Begin? They delve more into the support for her, etc., as I mentioned. I'm going to fast forward more towards the ending of their conversation, whereby she gets the positive support, and you will gain some clarity from this as well about how she feels about the situation, and I will give you what I would be giving her for her to turn it around for herself and to start to be even more positive about having what she wants with him.
It's 6 years you were living together. How many years did you live together?
Almost 4.
Okay. It's not like,
And we were so in love, so perfectly well suited with our lifestyle, how we'd raise the kids, what school, this, that, where we would travel, what languages, so detailed.
Mm-hmm. So what came up for you that suddenly you lost your compass? You lost your north, because it was your north too. Or did I really misunderstand this and it was always only mine? In my memory, I see us sharing a future together and talking about our vision for the future. And in my present, it suddenly feels like I was alone on that stage performing a play for two.
That's exactly how I feel.
Right. So am I mistaken? I just would appreciate if you can help clarify that for me. I need some of that. And I assume that that it would be better for you too. So that's, you can continue rage, but maybe not at him directly, because it's not, you need a few things. You need clarity. You need to know that you didn't invent reality.
I feel like I did.
You go back and forth. 1 minute you think you invented reality because it can't be that it was so off, and the next minute you say we were talking about schools and the future and all of that. We were in shared reality.
Wow.
You're going back and forth, and all of this very normal and very calm.
I was just about to ask that. I was just going to ask, could you give me a little perspective on where you don't know left from right? This idea of making a decision and suddenly...
So when you say to me, how can you say what's in my head without having heard me say it? It's because in some way I've heard it.
Yeah.
I've just created a composite of a lot of different voices, and you tell me if it resonates for you. But the only way I do know to do this is because you're not the only one. You're not the first one, and because it's happening often and maybe too often.
I mean, the guilt that I feel of having chosen the wrong partner for this and being sort of complicit and being misled or misleading myself or some combination.
I don't think you chose the wrong partner for this.
Yes, Esther and I are in complete agreement. She doesn't expound on that in the way I'm expounding on it for you here, but because of all that I said, and a man just needing to be presented with, I'm pregnant. Now, please do not misunderstand me. If you are not in a committed relationship, I am not recommending in any way, shape, or form that you just get pregnant without him being aware that it is a big possibility or that is what you are going for. No. I'm talking about this in the context of this woman, the commitment this man has shown, the freezing of the embryos. Think about what that entailed. My goodness, talk about commitment. I just believe, and Esther and I are in agreement, she didn't make a wrong choice. The approach just needed to have changed about the time coming up for her and her being rock solid in it, and it was happening in a very calm and composed way. This is something that I did with your agreement that in the 40th year we would begin. I'm going to keep going down the path. I trust you will support me in it. I know this is scary, honey. I know, but it's something we've wanted, and we are going to get through it. And if, for some reason, now I'm not saying he wouldn't be maybe even surly about it, or maybe a little even temper about it, or kicking and screaming, I don't know. Metaphorically kicking and screaming, you know what I'm saying. Like he was acting out in the therapy sessions. I get that. But we have to be the strong force of just saying, this is what is right for me. I trust you will support me in it, in whatever way you can. The idea of a baby for the man is not the same as for the woman. His body doesn't go through it. It is not the same. And studies show that men do not even attach to an infant in a way that the woman does at all. And not until that baby is a year or more does the man start to feel more like the woman has always felt. This is natural, normal. When we get it, we do ourselves a huge favor. Let's listen to more of the support she gets from Esther.
No, I'm willing to give now.
Wow.
I don't know the person, but I sometimes think if a person is in the story, but as they get closer, they suddenly flee, something else is happening that may have very little to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
I may be completely off, and when I say this, I hear one voice in me says it's important to have curiosity for where he came from, and another voice can hear people who say you cut that person way too much slack. But no, I think if you heard for 3 years we want this together, then you heard it
in complete agreement. You see, we're saying the same thing, just a different approach. Here it's about what is the tangible thing we do next to get what we desire and what we know the man does as well. But he can't see the forest for the trees in the way that we can.
There may be things in between that you didn't want to pay enough attention to. Then you got to 38. Then you said to yourself, if I leave now, I need to start the whole thing all over. Who knows when I would be meeting someone, if I will be meeting someone, and yet he and I are doing so well together. We have such a beautiful life. I cannot imagine he's not going to want to go through with this. So sunken costs.
Right.
That too is what many women often tell themselves.
And even more, even like, it'll be okay, I can be alone, or I can do it basically by myself, or I'll have an unavailable husband, and I'll have a kid, a dad who's just available, right? And making all of that okay.
You hear her fear, and of course it is there. That's where the mechanics of men and the manifestation have her trusting in this man's love and commitment, and trusting that when that child is there and presents itself, his why suddenly takes over. It's a profound change. She can feel it and know it now as a woman. He cannot. It would be her stepping into trust in their commitment and past and their beautiful life, trust in what Esther is going to tell her, which I second, that's coming up, and beginning to step into the manifestation and trust it.
There's something I just want to say. If you want to raise a child you will raise.
Tell me more about that.
It may not come the way you have imagined. It may not be part of the love story and the romantic plot the way you have conceived of it and the way you've been told it should be. It may not be a donor that you know, and it may be a donor that you know, but not your own eggs and your own genetic material. It may not be any of the places that or the references that we are familiar with, but you will have a child. It's not like an illness that when you have it, sometimes you can't reverse it. a child you will have. It may not come the way you have always thought of it, but a child you will have. You may birth it, you may not birth it, but a child you will have. It's very important that's the fate.
I was just, Esther, thank you so much for saying that.
I totally agree, with the caveat that I believe it was meant to be with this man, ergo the embryos. This woman just needs the right support and guidance through what I believe will lend itself to this man stepping up in the way that he has stepped up previously. Right now, understand, all that he feels and cannot wrap his mind around is that this relationship doesn't work. That's because they're doing the therapy or we're doing it. And now she's left, etc., etc. But if she changes this, he can see the light at the end of the tunnel. This child will mean so much more. They came through this together. I believe that is absolutely possible for this woman. Many listening would say, he's a cad, he let her down, he lied, he blah, blah, blah. I don't believe that. We cannot judge men via our female ideology, so to speak, as men cannot judge us through theirs. It doesn't work. In the rest of this episode, Esther is as lovely to her as you hear here and supportive. Basically, what she just outlined, a child you will have, is the message. I hope that what you take away from my take on it is that we, as the woman in the scenario, hold many more cards than we believe we do, but the quote-unquote game is not played via verbalization. It is played via action, and that men are slower to adapt in a way, and certainly they will not adapt verbally, but adapt they will. And if I were working with this gal, it would be that let us go for it, for sure. Let's reverse the last 5 months of the pain and the things said, etc. Let's go forward from here. She can. She absolutely can. And I hope if you are in a situation like this, I hope that no one finds themselves in a situation like this, and that this is a cautionary tale for any young woman that freezing of eggs is a wonderful thing to do. It's not 100% a given, but what Esther talked about here with her, and she alluded to, she wished she had frozen her eggs and not necessarily embryos. Again, each couple must make that choice, but for the woman to be completely self-protective, at least at the minimum doing both would be called for. So I appreciate Esther's work with her here, and you can hear more again on Where Should We Begin. It appears it was put out on May 12th of 2025, entitled I Waited for You to Be Ready, but Now I'm 40 and Childless. I gave you the bulk of it here. I trust this was illustrative for you. And if you are wanting to move forward with a man with commitment, getting an ex back, or with the strategies to find Mr. Right, I hope you will go to coachpaulagrooms.com and find out more how we can be talking, the support you can get there, and get all the information you need for anything you may be going through in terms of your dating or relationships. And as you know from being a listener here, it all begins with making him wonder. I trust you got a lot of good information from this full episode of Make Him Wonder. But information is not transformation. So if you are continuing to get information but not make any movement towards your goals, I'd be happy to help you with that. You can have a personalized discussion with me here on the podcast, as you may have heard, or in a private consultation. You can also talk to me on any of my YouTube or Instagram lives. There is a way we are doing that now so we can actually talk with one another anonymously. There are so many ways that we can work together. If you are wanting to find a Mr. Right, get an ex back, or grow an existing relationship with a man you truly desire so you create the relationship of your dreams and level up to the complete commitment you totally deserve. I hope you will take action and reach out to me at coachpaulagrooms.com, as I am honored to help you get the relationship you desire and deserve.